Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video, we are going to do our 6+ month review of the Langmuir Systems cutting table. And I'm going to give you guys my thoughts about it, kind of the good, the bad, the ugly, and the truth about this cutting system, and whether or not I think it's a good deal if you're considering purchasing one. So let me flip you around and we will get started. Okay, so I've made a list of the goods, the bads, the truth, and I will briefly explain maybe some of the other little incidental ugly parts about owning a Langmuir Systems Crossfire Pro. Now, the cutting table, like I said, this is a Langmuir Systems Crossfire Pro, so this is the largest one they make. This is the most decked out version of their cutting systems that they have for the Langmuir Systems. And there's a few differences. There's a few things that I've done with my machine that we'll get into here in just a bit. So I'm going to start off with the goods, and then I'll hit you with the bads, and then with the truth. And so I've made a list here. So first off, let's rattle them off. The goods: cheap, small shop worthy, can do small production. There's a great community surrounding them. Easy to use software. Will pay for itself, which is key. And the company delivered on what was promised. So that's the good. We'll go over the bad real quick, just as a quick breakdown for those of you out there that don't have a lot of time. The bad: the assembly, the waterbed leak, the Z-axis is a weak design, size of bed, no limits of travel for the XY axes, hidden costs, short wires, shipping, and then the truth. We'll get to that here in a minute. So let's go over some of the goods a little bit more in detail. The goods: cheap. This bed cost very little entry money to get into, and if I can find it, I'll put the price somewhere up here real quick when I edit this. Comparatively to other systems, this is about the cheapest thing you can get on the market for what you're getting, a good quality machine. So cheap, that means it makes it very accessible for the homeowner, the hobbyists, even a professional shop like mine, where I'm trying to include this in on the things that I do and in my own ironwork and fabrication and things like that for my business. So it's a great entry level door to there where you don't have to spend, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a bed. Small shop worthy. Again, for a small shop, you can fit this in. The size, the footprint of everything, you can fit this in a fairly small shop and still get other work done. If you've got a small fabrication shop that you're trying to do, or a garage, right? You're trying to do some auto parts, make up some, custom things for a custom hot rod or something like that, this can be a great machine and a great bed for you. It can do small production runs. Let's talk about that. I have been cutting a lot of blacksmithing blanks. If you're interested in any of those, by the way, a little segue, you can go over to blacksmithpds.com and check out the blanks that I have been cutting with this machine. And I have done a lot of cutting, and I do mean a lot of cutting with this machine over the last 6 months. And for the most part, that has been a really pleasing experience. Be able to get a lot of blanks cut in a short amount of time is pretty good. Definitely way faster than anything you can do by hand. Even with a hand plasma cutter, just way faster. The ability to duplicate parts at scale, or even at a small scale like this, it can be very handy and can really up your production. It's got a great community. Online, they have a lot of online articles and forums on their websites. So you can get a part of that without even owning a machine. You can read people's comments and what they're having problems with, and it seems like there's always somebody helping somebody else out get their machine figured out, or whatever problems they may have. So there's a really good community around this machine, and really stronger than what I've seen in any other this type of homeowner grade slash, you know, consumer grade plasma cutter bed. So far, Langmuir Systems seems to be the best community that there is out there. Easy to use software. This machine runs off of fire control software. I know that they have a different one where you can run it off of Mach 3. I can't comment to that because I've never used that software. I've only used what's come with the machine, which was fire control software. Where pretty easy. You don't need a computer degree or anything like that to figure out how to download it onto your computer and get stuff set up. It kind of basically leads you through that process. It's just drag and dropping kind of some files and you're good to go. So the software is pretty easy. Everything's clearly labeled on the computer. That makes sense to me. There's no, you know, weird spracketing the English here. It's literally, you know, stop, go, start, stop buttons, you know, forward, backwards, X, Y axis, right? Like you have actual controls. And if you get yourself a touchscreen laptop to work with, it's really super handy in the shop with the touchscreen capability of a laptop. You can just kind of press on the, you know, interface there, and it makes things a lot nicer. You don't need a big, you know, mouses and a lot of stuff like that. It's just a small little thing that really is helps out. One other thing I'll say is a pro about the software is it gets updated regularly, and they are really good about, again, around that community suggestion, fixing bug fixes in the software. So if there's any glitches with your machine, you might just have to upgrade to the newest version of the software, and boom, the bug fixes are, you know, all the problems you might have been having or little glitches, they're gone. So they're really good about staying up on top of that. So that's pretty good. The last on the good thing is it will, well, not the last, second to last, excuse me, it will pay for itself. So this is a huge consideration if you're trying to put this thing to work and put it in your shop for use. Now, obviously, if you're just a home person that you just want to use it for your own projects, that doesn't matter. And so that makes that cost a lot higher to you. But if you're going to be doing it as a business, you're going to be cutting stuff, making signs to sell, who knows, whatever you may get into, right? Making custom fabricated pieces. That ability right there to be able to pay for itself and have an ROI is really important. I know it's important in my shop, and this machine has already well and full paid for itself. It's completely paid off, which is an absolute godsend. And I owe that to my blacksmithing family here on YouTube, our community here. You all really went way over the top to take care of Jessica and I during Christmas time and buying ornament blanks and things like that from us. That was a huge help into paying, you know, completely paying this system off. So we've actually gotten a return on our investment now. So that is awesome. So thanks for that. Last but not least, on the good part, company. The company delivered on what was promised. There's a lot of questions about, okay, hey, I tried to call a number, or there wasn't, there's not a lot of information, other than just what stayed on their website. People have had problems, wondering whether this is a legit company. Well, I received my machine. It's here. They delivered what they had promised on. So, yeah, they're a legit company. As far as I know, I've gotten my machine along with thousands of other people have. The one thing I could say about it is, which we'll get into the bad, they're always on back order. So you just kind of have to stick with that. That's one of those rare times in an online company when they say they're on back order, they're actually on back order. I don't think they have a warehouse of these sitting around and they're just, shipping them at random intervals. They really are on back order. So you can, the wait time that you're going to have is accurate. So that brings us into the bad. Let's get into the bad, shall we? Assembly. The assembly on this machine was really over the top. I am a very handy person. I'm very mechanically inclined, and I just think there's one too many bolts and gizmos and widgets and things like that you have to assemble. The company could have spent a little extra time doing some pre-assemblies, but literally nothing was pre-assembled. So you've got I bet you, I almost guarantee it. There's probably 1,000 nuts and little bolts and things like that that you have to arrange and figure out what goes with what and assemble yourself. Again, that's something that they could have took care of right there at the factory and have some pre-assembly work done, and it would have been able to be just fine. Likewise, there are some elements here that could have just been welded at the factory for the amount of time and kept perfectly square, and would have stopped me from having about 5-6 hours of trying to get everything squared up and in line and tracking right and things like that. So a lot of bolts, a lot of crisscross. They're just the assembly. If you purchase one of these, you'll see there's some other tutorials on how to assemble these machines out there on the internet that you can go check out. If you go look those up, you'll see what I'm saying. A lot of times guys will cut out a whole lot of they'll edit out portion of the assembly work just because it's a lot. You have to assemble the Z-axis. You have to assemble everything on this. Anything that has a bolt, you basically have to assemble it on this machine. And I just found that to be quite tedious. When you get all of your parts in, you got a lot of stuff to deal with on this machine. Now, again, your results are going to vary. If you buy just the regular Crossfire bed, that's a smaller thing. There's less parts and pieces to it. So, just be advised. That's a bad, in my opinion, is the kind of convoluted assembly. It could have been a lot easier for the customer to assemble had they just spent a little bit more time at the welder creating pre-assemblies. This is probably one of my largest gripes with the machine. Is this next one is the waterbed leak. The waterbed has leaked from moment one. Started from moment one. To their credit, I mean, they give you a little silicone to go with. I even added my own silicone to the joint on top and try to goop it, and the thing just leaks from moment one. It's like a clamshell design, so it's 2 halves that get bolted together down a seam like that. And the little tiny bolts they put with it, they're junk. There's no 2 ways about it. They're just junk. The little tiny bolts and little washers and trying to get it to pull together and dealing with the silicone, it's a mess. And yeah, just shouldn't be done. For as small as this bed is, they could have broke this pan all in one piece. It had been in one piece and you wouldn't have any problem with that whatsoever. Again, that's something on the manufacturer side of things that they could have already had done. Basically, they have a lot more work shipping it in 2 halves than they would if it was just one solid sheet. They have way more joints, and they've introduced a lot of problems. So again, my bed leaks like a sieve, and it has since moment one. Eventually, I'll care enough that it'll aggravate me enough that I will probably just weld it up solid, and that has been a fix. And that's a common thing in their threads, in their community threads, is people's water beds leaking. And if a company can fix software like that, they should fix that manufacturing issue and make it a solid pan if they're going to do it. For no bigger than the bed is, there's no excuse for it. So just to give you an idea, you even run screws. You run self-tapping screws through the bottom of the waterbed into the frame, and none of that has leaked. Knock on wood. I don't got any wood around here. None of that has leaked, but that seam has leaked from moment one. So I cannot recommend the waterbed action on it, especially for what you pay. You pay an extra couple $100, $200-300 for the waterbed add-on itself, and I wouldn't say that that was a good value for your time. You could probably get with a regular fab shop around and get some stainless broke up as a solid sheet. It's a basic thing. So yeah, waterbed leak, bad. Moving on, Z-axis is a weak design. So as I have found with mine, and why I say that the Z-axis is a weak design, the Z-axis is really made for a hobbyist grade plasma torch. It is not made for a professional cutting torch like the Hypertherm 65. I've got a big cutting torch on there that's got an actual machine torch in it. That I had to buy an extra additional bracket that didn't come with it. And when it's all put together, the whole system's a little bit too heavy for it. And the bearings, the little roller bearings they give you on the Z-axis, they just can't handle it. So what does that mean? That means on anything large, when you try to cut some large steel, you're going to notice a lot of wandering of your cut line. So your cuts aren't going to come out square. So if you're trying to cut real thick stuff and you've bought a really professional plasma cut, a really professional plasma cutter and added it to the system, the Z-axis is just inadequate when it comes to that. Next, size of bed. This is all under to the bed. And these are some of these things that this is the truth of owning the machine. This isn't a fluffy little, flowery piece that you see everybody do because, well, they have some affiliate income to make from it. Let's go with the size of bed. So the reality of the size with this bed here is that you're going to be cutting small stuff. That's fair enough. You can fit a 4-foot sheet on here. That's fine. A 4-foot by 3-foot sheet. That's fine. That does not mean that you will be able to cut a 4-foot by 3-foot sheet. The max cut that you can do on this bed is 32 inches by about 47 inches. So it's not a full 4 feet. The bed, the head and the carriage won't run out to the edge of plate. So you can't make an edge to edge cut. That's bad because most, and I will say most sheets of steel that I receive are not exactly 48 inches in width by 8 feet. No, they are 49¼ inches in width. So again, you can't make an edge-to-edge cut, so it's always going to leave you with a little bit of scrap on the edge that you're going to have to contend with or just lose money on it. So that is a bad thing in my opinion. With an inch more or 2 inches more of width than what is needed for the interior of the bed, you would be able to make an edge-to-edge cut on your designs, and that would work out. That would work out great. Same thing on the depth of the bed. If it was just a fuzz bigger, we're not talking huge difference here. We're talking an inch or two. You would be able to make a full cut across stuff versus only being able to have a size of sheet about 32 inches and have to stay inside of that 32 inches with your designs. So again, it would be handy if that bed was, just 2 inches bigger in every direction. It would be great. You don't have to go crazy, Langmuir, if you're watching this. You don't have to have a 6-foot bed. It doesn't have to be ginormous and huge, and it doesn't have to be all these things. But literally, the plate steel doesn't come in the size that fits on the bed. It'll fit on the bed, but you have a lot of wastage in the areas that you just can't cut. That brings me to no limits for the XY travel. This is the other reality. There's no limit switches to stop the bed from jamming into the brackets on the back or the front on either the X-axis or the Y-axis, front and back. There's no stops. So you can run the thing, and if you're not paying attention, and you have to be careful of this, say if you've got a design and it's really close to the edge of your plate, you can actually run off that plate and just jam up into, it gets jammed up against the bolts on this side, bolts on that side, and front and back. That is one of those things that I didn't know, certainly when I first bought this thing. CNC work is all new to me, and especially CNC plasma is all completely new to me. So those are things I didn't know to look out for, but you're probably going to have to get some limit switches, or you're going to have to be very, very careful. That's just the reality of it. It'd be nice if the system had some sort of way of telling, hey, I can't go past these limits for the bed. They could probably even do that in the software. If you have a design that is exceeding the far extension limits of the bed, it could give you an error code or something to where you can make a tweak, versus you having to really stand by this thing and watch, and it comes crashing into the bed, because that's not good. Not good for the motors, not good for the backlash nuts. Next thing up, hidden costs. So let's get into that a little bit. And I'm going to kind of roll into the next one, short wires. There's short wires involved in hidden costs. So the hidden cost of this machine, when you see what the advertised price of the unit is on the Langmuir Systems website, you will see the price of the machine. It'll look flashy, it'll look cheap, but then underneath that are all the add-ons, right? And that's not the hidden costs. Those are all up there. Those are all optional. You can do that. The hidden costs for me came from going from a professional machine. I bought a Hypertherm PowerMax 65 plasma cutter, and so I had to buy an additional CNC cable for it. I had to buy a torch height controller. Well, I had to have that. That's an additional thing that had to happen, okay? And I had to buy extra long cables for everything. I had to buy extension cables, DC power extension cables, in order to get it from my machine that's just placed above it here to down here to the actual brains of the operation. And so Langmuir Systems didn't leave you with any length of cable long enough than just to get to there. So when it comes to cable management, if you're trying to put things in a raceway and make everything just really nice and buttoned up and clean looking, you really can't. I did the best I could with my machine, and we may go over it in a later date. If anybody has any interest, comment down below if you want to see what I've done to upgrade my machine. Yeah, if you want to doctor things up real nice and do really nice cable management and stuff, it's not there. It's not thought about. It's like, here's some short cables that are just long enough if your machine sits on the ground under your waterbed that leaks. I'll get a little salty about that. Yeah, your waterbed that leaks. So electricity and water leaking, not a great idea. But anyways, so yeah, so that's kind of some of the hidden costs. The other things that you don't think about is air compressor. Is your air compressor large enough? Can it put out enough airflow? You're going to have to run some dryers, a lot of line dryers, to make sure that the air is really crisp and dry when it comes into your plasma cutter. That way you don't ruin your power supply or eat up a bunch of tips. So that is an additional cost that you may not think about. Your air compressor needs to be large enough to run it, especially if you're doing production runs. I have a 270-gallon air compressor, so it can keep up just fine, and it's running about 14 cubic foot a minute of airflow, so it can handle everything that my plasma cutter, it's sized more than what my plasma cutter needs. And that's kind of the key thing there. Now, that's not on Langmuir Systems stuff. Again, they have a razor weld, I think it is, 45 plasma cutter. And if you guys buy that, it's a cheaper plasma cutter. You'll have to size your air compressor based upon specs. And again, there'll be the additional cost of line dryers that you'll need, hoses, stuff like that. There's going to be some additional costs there. So those are some hidden costs. Now, that's not on Langmuir Systems specifically, but there's going to be some hidden costs that you maybe don't anticipate about buying the bed, and those can be quite pricey if you're not careful. You'll have to wire it. You'll have to have an electrician or yourself or whatever wire it if you feel comfortable wiring it. Having a power outlet put by. If you already have something like that, then you're going to be good to go. But again, that's another additional cost that is probably going to be needed, as well. So the last con, if you will, we'll go with the shipping. The shipping, that was one of those things that it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. They send it in like if you buy everything that I did, they send it in like 5 or 6 different shipments to you. So whenever your actual ship date is, whatever your production run is, where they say, oh yeah, we'll ship, whoever's in this batch will be shipped out in July, that might be the end of July. So ours was supposed to get here in July, and they didn't ship it until July 30th. They didn't start shipping until July 30th, and it wasn't through till the middle of August before we had all boxes in and accounted for. And the way they shipped them out, they shipped all your hardware and your computer stuff all in one box, and then everything else in every other box, right? The frame came in a different box, the waterbed came in a different box, you know, stuff like that. Well, the problem is you can't assemble the frame without your hardware. So, so you got a bunch of frame pieces laying around and you're kind of like, what the heck, man? And you can't assemble the frame or the waterbed. I got the frame first, then the waterbed, then I can't think of the other thing I got next. Then I finally got the electronic control pieces, you know, the hardware stuff, and then I finally got the final bit of stuff, which was the things to actually wire up the, you know, the plasma cutter to the plasma bed. So it was really weird with the shipping. You just get bits and little pieces and spurts as they go. I don't know why they can't just ship it all in one load at the same time. Doesn't make sense to me. I've shipped a lot of items in my career, and it should be easy enough for somebody to just send everything out at once. Shouldn't be that hard. But anyways, so that's the bad, right? Went on a long tirade there. I know this is a long video, but for those of you who care and are actually interested in this machine, it matters. It matters. So let's go with let's go with the truth, shall we? Because I think that basically covers it. We can shorten it up. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly, all in of itself. Let's go on with the truth. Is it a good machine to start on? Yes, it is. That's very truthful. Everybody out there that makes videos on these, that's a very truthful statement. This is a great starting machine, a great starting option. I know I was not prepared. I wasn't ready to go jump into a gigantic bed of any sort because you don't know what you don't know until you get into it. So was it a great starting point? Yes, it is. So the next thing I'd like to point out is, again, the next truth. Is this a quick build thing where you can just do it on a weekend and you're up and running and you're just cutting parts? No, it isn't. It's not a quick option for that. If you need a machine like next Tuesday, that's just, it's not your thing. It's not going to work. It doesn't come fully assembled. There's learning curves involved with it, a lot of setup work to get everything set up and running and functioning properly. And especially if you are not, if you're a computer impaired person, yeah, it's going to be a lot of work on that front. So it's not a great quick option to where you're just like, oh yeah, man, I just going to set that up in a day and I'm up and producing, you know, day 2. That's just not how it works. There's going to be a learning curve. It's made for a home or hobby shop, really. Even though it says Crossfire Pro and it's targeted at a prosumer market, it's not really a professional tool or a piece of equipment. It's really not. You can make your money on it. And I guess that's considered professional. You can make your money back on it. You can do things like that. That works out just fine. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to labor saving and cost. And when I got to cut up a bunch of excess steel that isn't able to cut on the bed because the bed's just not quite wide enough, and there's a lot of little things that go into that. I got to keep filling the waterbed with water because it leaks like a sieve. Like there's stuff like that that makes it not a professional tool. It's really geared towards those who want to get into the CNC space and plasma cutting space, and they've got a garage and they've got a little bit of space for it. They can't buy a big old gigantic bed, and they certainly sure as heck can't afford the cost. The other part of that is the reason why I said it's more for a home hobby versus a professional shop is because of the output. The max output you're going to be able to put on this bed is parts that are like, for instance, my 12.5-inch skillets. Those parts take up, there's 6 of them I can get on the sheet that this bed can cut, along with 3 little 8-inch skillet blanks. That's it. And you have to take time to load the machine with it. You have to take time to pull the parts off, remove the skeleton. Again, you have to make some straight cuts to try to cover the value that's on the ends. Those things are not handy. That's why I would not consider this a professional machine. It's targeted at a prosumer market, but it's very, very, very entry level. Which leads me into my last truthful point. I'm going to be looking for a more professional option for my shop, myself, because I would like to be able to lay on a sheet of material and let the machine run, and it have the reliability to where I don't have to watch it 24/7, which this machine you kind of have to do. You have to baby it, you have to tinker with it. There's going to be little issues arise, and you're going to have to make adjustments, and you're going to have to put things back into square and stuff like that. It's just what this machine is, and so you can't change it. So I'm going to be looking for more of a for a more professional option when it comes to a cutting table that has less setup time and things like that, and that can handle a lot bigger sheets. Now, I'm coming from a position that I can say that because I have bought this machine and it has paid for itself, and so therefore I can say things like that, right? But if you're just getting into it and maybe you got a stimulus check in, maybe you got tax returns, but whatever, wherever you're at when you're watching this video, or maybe you got a little bit of extra cash in your savings, and you thought, hey, this is something that I could maybe get into and do some flea markets and shows and stuff, then yes, it's going to be a great machine and a great quality machine for that purpose. But just keep in mind and realize that this isn't one of those where you can just type something into the computer, you get your coffee, you walk away, and an hour later you can come back and everything's been cut perfect, the machine shut off and put itself to bed. That's just not the reality of doing CNC work. So that's the truth. Last thing, would I buy it again? Yes, I would. I think it's a great option if you're going to get started into the CNC space. I think it's definitely helped my business quite a bit, grow a little bit in that department. So I do like it in that result. With all of its little quirks and issues and little fixes and little buggy issues, things that you have to mess with, it's really not too bad. When the machine is running, it does what it's supposed to do, and it guides your cutting torch. And the quality of your cut will be based upon how good your cutting is, your plasma cutter is at creating a nice arc. But other than that, yes, before I go down any more bunny trails, yes, I think it's worth the buy if you're interested in purchasing them. Again, I'll leave a link to their website where you can go look them up. I do not get any commission. There's no discounts, there's no deals, there's no nothing. So this is purely an unbiased review, 110% on the Langmuir Systems cutting table. So if you go over there to their website and you decide it tickles your fancy and you purchase, more power to you, and I hope that it'll be a good buy for you. So again, no affiliation whatsoever. That's it for today. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Thank you to all of my channel members. You all are awesome. You are what makes this channel possible and the content possible on this channel, and I can't thank you all enough. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, you can click that join button below this video. If you're interested in just subscribing to the channel to see what else I get into, we've got over 1,500 and coming up on 50 videos for you to take and watch on the subject of blacksmithing, and some fabrication stuff in there too. So that's it for today. God bless, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.